This week, Dimitri Stiliadis from Indoor Labs is with us to discuss the TJ Actions GitHub Actions breach. And then for this week's topic segment, we're discussing whether the US should openly engage in more offensive operations within the cyber domain. And finally, in the enterprise security news, we discussed the latest fundings, a few acquisitions, a vibe coding campfire story, how to hack AI agents, 0 days in coding apps, AI coding apps, more AI 0 days, why Ivanti vulns are still alive and well in Japan, how wiper commands made their way into Amazon's AI coding agent. It seems very much like vulnerabilities in AI are pairing up in this week's news stories. So all that and more on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
It's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Do your end users always, and I mean always, without exception, work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? I didn't think so. So my next question is, how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has an answer to this question: Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. Check it out at securityweekly.com/1password. Ransomware. Supply chain attacks, 0 days. Cyber threats don't wait, and neither should your defenses. With ThreatLocker, you're not just reacting to threats, you're stopping them before they start. Our Zero Trust endpoint protection locks down your environment with pinpoint control over what's allowed to run and what's not. No guesswork, no blind spots. Just proactive, built-for-now security that keeps your business moving. Want to see how a true default deny strategy works? Head over to securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker and take the first step towards shutting the door on threats before they even knock. All right, welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy National Thermal Engineer Day. This is episode 417, recorded on Thursday, July 24th, 2024. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me is the Admiral of ASPM, the Captain of Content, Katie Teitler-Santullo. How you doing, Katie?
I'm well. I don't even know a single thermal engineer, so congrats to all of you. It sounds like it could be a specialized field, so all 17 of you, but
Probably more than that. I
yes.
imagine, like if you don't want things to blow up, there's a lot of fields you have thermal engineers in, or if you're designing anything that gets really hot, right? and you have to have a cooling system for it.
My college boyfriend was an engineer, and he did study thermodynamics. And at one point, I knew the 3 or 4 laws of thermodynamics, but I honestly don't remember them. I just know that there's one that has to do with, if you've got a large but shallow body of water that's going to dry up more quickly. But that's the extent of what I remember from 172 years ago.
So my husband has a degree in sustainable HVAC engineering. That is what his degree is actually in. And so unfortunately, I do know all of the laws of thermodynamics. I've mentioned this before. We started a mechanical contractor together. So I'm also certified in like a couple levels of industrial automation languages and can probably we pick these things up along the way. And I'm like that, but I can't remember to move my laundry from the washer to the dryer an hour after I started. So that's great.
I didn't expect you guys to get so excited about Thermal Engineer Day, but I'm glad you did.
We're nerds. You might as well have said trains.
I'm reading a book called Midnight in Chernobyl right now. So thermal engineering is also, coming into that conversation quite a bit as well. To introduce Jackie, also joining us, Dean of Data Science, the Knight of Neurodiversity, the Watcher of Data Center Waste, and perhaps waste heat. Jackie McGuire, how are you, Jackie?
Yeah, I guess fangirl. I don't know. Is that what that would be? industrial fangirl. Yeah, I'm great. It's been a crazy week at my house. It really has. So I'm glad that we're more than halfway there, because I am really looking forward to this weekend. But on Monday, I conquered this rock climbing route that I could not conquer for weeks. So I feel like a champion this week.
Nice. I did not know that you did that. I remember Eamon the other day mentioned that YouTube was that rock climbing was the only thing he couldn't learn from YouTube. He was talking about how useful YouTube was in his latest newsletter. I also did a lot of rock climbing in my younger years. Haven't done anything recently, but yeah, interesting stuff. So to jump into today's topic, we are diving into one of my favorite ones, which is breach postmortems, exploring why failures happen and getting into some of those details. So I'm very excited about today's conversation. And specifically, we're going to be discussing the GitHub Actions breach involving TJ Actions, which many of you may have already forgotten because it happened all the way back in March, which is forever now, with today's news cycles. I couldn't believe that it was March of this year when that happened. My brain told me it happened years ago already. So I no longer have a sense for time. And our guide on this topic will be Dimitri Stiliadis, CTO and co-founder at Indoor Labs. Welcome, Dimitri.
Good to be here.
And speaking of National Thermal Engineer Day, Dimitri, you have a very interesting background that's not in cybersecurity specifically.
Well, no, it's always in the computer world. Let's put it this way. I actually did fail my physics course that was doing thermodynamics back in the day, but I passed by accident, let's put it this way. So I cannot answer any questions on thermodynamics, unfortunately.
But you're in good company then. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so no, I have been in I'm mostly a software person, let's put it this way. I'm a computer scientist by trade, but I love security. I think security is fundamental to building software. It's close to availability. For me, security is equal to availability. So it's very important, and that's why I'm fascinated working on this area.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do have a PhD in computer engineering, authored over 50 research papers, hold more than 20 patents. So yeah, I imagine, and you did some interesting stuff. It looks like mostly network.
I did stuff in network and systems and so on. I actually was lucky enough. So here is my story. If I want to talk about it, I was a researcher. I was working for Bell Labs, the well-known but now defunct research organization. I had the opportunity to work next to some extremely smart people doing all kinds of things, from optical routers to optical devices to wireless transmission to, hanging out with Nobel Prize winners. I was never one of them, but it was a very interesting experience. And then at some point, about 15 years ago, I said, enough with research, I'm going to start building companies. And I have been building companies for the last 15 years. So in my past life, I was a researcher. In my current life, I'm just building stuff.
Great. Well, building stuff is rewarding, but today, unfortunately, we're talking about breaking stuff.
Yes. And that's the funny thing, right? It's actually so timely today because despite the fact that this happened, 5 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, that we don't even remember it anymore. If you read the news the last 4 days, similar things have happened day after day, right? I think over the weekend, there was an NPM package that was a supply chain related thing, right? There was an NPM package that was compromised, that was doing all kinds of things. Then I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, with similar mechanisms as TJ Actions, somebody compromised the AWS code agent that you talked about. And that
we have that in our news segment today.
Right? It's the same story, right? Then I was just reading another announcement came today. Somebody compromised another GitHub organization. Again, similar ways, stealing some GitHub token, whatever. They published 10 packages out there that were essentially malware bombs, if you want. Some of them were deleting stuff, some other were shipping stuff. So this seems to be daily news at this point. And if we go back and see the root causes and how these are happening, it's always the same story. It's the same story, finding itself in different places, right? So I think it's actually fascinating to see the evolution of attack vectors happening there.
So I actually...
Sorry, go ahead. I imagine this will continue to get worse with AI because so I came into security through data science, through a data science boot camp. And I think I kind of understood what I was doing when I was importing packages in Python, but it was a means to a model, right? It was that was the least important thing I was doing and not something that I thought about. And I have to believe that that's the case for 95% of people who get into data science. Is I didn't really conceive, they didn't explain supply chain risk. They didn't and so I imagine that as you have all these people out there, I hate to use the V coding word, but importing packages because they're building models, this is going to get exponentially worse, right?
Yeah. I mean, there are two things I think fundamental here, right? So on the one hand, we have these ecosystems that are, I don't think they are very sensitive. Well, they are sensitive to security and they're becoming even more sensitive, but by default, they were developed in a world that was much cleaner, right? So when you load packages in Python, from PyPy, from NPM, whatever, you assume whatever you're downloading from there, it's kind of secure. The problem is that publishing things to these places, it can be done by anybody that has a login and password, right? And people lose these things. And the other thing that happened is people also realize that people don't treat their GitHub credentials very well, right? So now they are attacking GitHub repositories, they are attacking GitHub pipelines. From there, they are exfiltrating tokens. From there, they are using the tokens to push packages. Now, users are completely unaware. They are just downloading stuff, right? Because I want to use the latest AI model, the latest machine learning model, whatever, pip install X, boom, all kinds of things come down, right? So this has become for me, it's the corresponding thing of, I found this USB key on the parking lot and I'm plugging it in my computer. This is the new version of this, that I'm just downloading random stuff from the internet. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, right?
I mean, it's human nature, right? I often hear people say, how did we ever figure out this was food, right? It doesn't seem intuitive that we should be eating this plant or this animal or this part of the, and the answer is we just stick stuff in our mouth, right? If somebody dies, we make note, after they tried eating that. Okay, I guess that's poisonous. We shouldn't do that again. But yeah, we're curious. We just try things. That's part of our nature, right?
Right. And then the second part is, if you think about it, is that the attackers now have figured out that the weakest link is there. And they've become increasingly more sophisticated, right? If we go back to the forensics, right, to understand what happened with TJ Action, the attacker there was working for several months. And it's not that they figured out a way to infiltrate TJ Actions and steal passwords. What they did is they figured out that they could go to some other repo, it was called Spotbugs, look at the CIC, do a PR there, look at the logs. From the logs there, they could exfiltrate a PAT token, essentially a GitHub token. From there, they figured out that the same GitHub token had access to another repository. So they used it in another repository to compromise that repository. That this repository was used by another GitHub action to compromise this one, that was used by another one to compromise this one. So they were following a chain of dependencies over several months to reach their target. Their target is speculated to be Coinbase. I don't know if it is Coinbase. It could be anybody. But they were working actively. There was somebody working actively on this for several months, potentially multiple people, in order to achieve the target, right? So the sophistication of these things is just increasing, and it is the weakest link. Software supply has become the weakest link, and people are taking advantage of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're seeing that. I mean, I can't remember the last time we did our news segment and didn't have some supply chain attack or issue in the news. And in fact, one of the other podcasts that I do is entirely focused on third-party risk. So that's almost entirely what we talk about, and we never run out of things to talk about. In fact, quite the opposite. It's very difficult to choose. It's a monthly podcast. Very difficult to choose what we're going to talk about for that month, because there's always so much.
I think that one of the other things is that with, code generation, I always worry that if I'm using generated code, it's going to pull like 85% of something like, let's say, XCutils, right? And I don't even know that that's the open source package that I'm using. And then that gets compromised. Right. And I know it's been compromised, but I don't know that I'm using it because it didn't pull it as a package. It pulled the code for me. And so I just think there's all these things that the layers and layers and layers and layers of risk that we're creating without visibility, and just import this package, just use this thing. Cause I went on Reddit and like 8 random strangers told me this was the thing to use. And all of a sudden you've got this like 16-step attack vector that, it's wild.
And that really is the issue. And we hear it every day at my day job. And then you have a lot of vendors saying, I can do this, I can give you visibility. And you've got pieces of visibility from a lot of vendors. And so you're looking in and saying, okay, well, if I look in and I get this piece and I go, oh, okay, I have this package, or, from a different perspective. And it's very, very complicated. And in a lot of cases, you also have to piece together a million different things, and developers just don't want to slow down. They don't want to slow down to look, hey, we got to stop for 24 hours to do all these scans. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So, we actually did an experiment. We actually did the decoding, as you call it. I did it live, where I just went and said, hey, build me an app that does that. And whatever it does, by game tracking, something. I don't even remember what it was. The bottom line is this thing pulled down, I think 1900, if I remember correct, 1900 dependencies in order to do it. And
I'm sure you thoroughly went through every one of them. You're a responsible developer.
That's a simple thing, right? You just said it was simple.
Yeah, it was just a UI that you track, like what are all the board games you have built, whatever, right? But it pulls React, and then from React it pulls whatever, and then from there it pulls whatever. Mm-hmm. And we're gonna see more and more of those. And I think as a community, as an industry, we have to start asking these fundamental questions, like how can we protect these ecosystems, right? Because these ecosystems were built for ease of use, and they were built to make it easy for everybody to publish their open source world. And now we are in a situation where nobody can trust it, right? And if nobody can trust it, eventually it will lose its value. And that's why it's fundamental for all these ecosystems to come up to speed and say, hey, we cannot be letting things like that happen.
And I guess one of the things that Adrian had pointed out is that, we're months past some of these things and still talking about them, and we often don't get full details of the incident. So in your opinion, what is the first step to solving this problem? Is it deeper reporting requirements? So we saw the SEC trying to put breach requirements on companies. Is it you have to provide somebody a full SBOM if they're generating code? Is it
because we're not learning the lesson, right?
Yeah. I mean, so what is this a regulatory problem? Do we need to create laws? Is it just a behavior problem?
I hate to believe that. I'm actually often very much against all these compliance standards, right? Because it will become yet another compliance standard, because compliance standards tend to be a security theater rather than real security. Right. I think it has to boil down to the responsibility of the businesses, right? I actually have some very controversial thoughts if you want on that. We publish software and we make people sign up for software services, and we make them sign a release there that anything bad that happens, it doesn't matter, right? This is the corresponding of a mechanical engineer or a bridge architect, a civil engineer, telling you can cross this bridge, but if the bridge falls, sorry, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the only industry that's like that, right?
We talk about this all the time because I'm like, why isn't there the equivalent of a fiduciary standard for security companies? There really isn't.
Right.
It's like there's nobody to sue if they screw up.
It's all like that. We build software, and then very often, everybody says, "Oh, the developers don't care about security." I have to be real here and say the developers care about having a job that they go at 9 and they leave at 5. And if the product manager or the company doesn't tell them, go solve the security issues, they will solve whatever the product manager goes and tells them, right? Because they want to go back to their families. So it's not developers don't care about security. It's that fundamentally we have no incentives about security, right? And I asked these questions several years ago, like, do you have did any developer get a promotion because they spend their time fixing security bugs rather than shipping fixtures? Right. Then the answer is no, right? So I think that's the root cause. Now we can find the technical root causes. We can talk about them, but I think the social, or you want the economic root causes, is there is just no economic incentives, right?
Yeah. Or disincentives.
Right.
Well,
and it's
It's not
I agree,
that
it's
they
unfair
don't
to
care about security. It's that there's so much, and they are incentivized to get their software out. So it's not that they don't care. It's that they're getting a ton of alerts, uncontextualized. They're up against deadlines. And it's like, well, how much of my time am I going to spend on this thing when I have a deadline? And that's what my manager cares about. That's my KPI.
When a lot of companies have also switched to this like accelerated release thing where they're trying to release things more rapidly, and this is putting even more strain on development teams, is like, no, if we're trying to release patches every 2 weeks, then you don't have time to hold something up for a security issue. And I've seen that in companies, and like, oh, well, we're not going to fix this issue because it would cause these other 2 issues, and then we're going to miss the release date, so we're just going to wait until the next release, and then it slips through the cracks, right?
But now, having said that, right, in order to say the positives about AI, because we have been experimenting with these things and I can see them happening, and I think it will be real pretty soon. If I go and tell an agent, hey, this bunch of dependencies have security issues, or if I tell an agent that this piece of code is problematic, the agents are very good at actually iterating and fixing the problems, as long as you tell them, right? So the way I see this thing evolving is that the agents, the AI agents, will get security signal, and they will use the signal on their iteration loop to fix things much faster and much simpler, right? So if you have to upgrade 100 dependencies, what would you do as a human is upgrade the first one, go test it, upgrade the next one, go test it, upgrade the next one, go test it, right? And this is exhausting. It can take you days or weeks. Well, you spin an agent that does this job, it will eventually do it, right? It will take a day, do it in the background, come back and do it. So I do actually think that AI can help here, but it's gonna take its time until it does. But there are good signs that it can help here.
Yeah. And it's just talking about that simple app that you created with AI that had 1,900 dependencies. I think it actually kind of helps to use Linux here. Like anytime you've said, apt install Node.js, right? And the first thing you see is, okay, downloading 900 dependencies, right? and you watch it one by one. It like it really kind of opens your eyes to how big that dependency problem can be, especially if you're trying to build somebody's random code off of GitHub. And they haven't made it a smooth process, or you look at their requirements.txt, and there's 49 lines in there, right?
Well, like literally at the beginning of boot camp, like the instructor will put a Python or like a Jupyter notebook up, and it's just got like 20 pip installs at the top. are imports, and they don't tell you why. They don't tell you, hey, by the way, these are all software packages that have to be updated, and like they're just like, you need these to do the model that we're building today. So,
and sometimes in some of these libraries, there's the concept of like a meta package, right, where you can pip install data science, right? It's like 130, pandas, like all very common data science libraries.
And now you have all these other companies springing
and now
up
it's abstracted.
That problem, right? Like the chain guards and things like that. And like now we're looking at minimal containers. And it's like, okay, after you build the bulky container, now you got to pay somebody else to strip everything out of it. And it's
kind of the telephone game when we were kids. It's exactly like the telephone game. Right?
Yeah, because as a data scientist, I don't care how bulky my code is. I don't care how inefficient.
To decipher.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to have to stop writing a model to install something. So I'm just going to do it all at the beginning because I'm not being held accountable for how big my container is or how efficient it is or how secure it is. Right. That's not my job.
So Dimitri, I bring this up, and to your point with AI looking like it could be useful here, it seems like we're at a point where even developing a simple app, like we have to use some kind of automation to be able to track and handle dependencies that are potentially problems here. Like it's just much too big to expect a developer to check these. One by one. It has to be some kind of automated system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? So in order to achieve that, you need a couple of things, right? You need information signal, meaning the reality is that as new things break, whatever on the internet, you need an up-to-date signal to give to the agent or the AI that, these vulnerabilities have a problem. Sorry, these packages have a problem and they have a problem here. Don't use them. Or if you use them, don't use this particular thing that has a problem, right? So you need an up-to-date signal because otherwise agents are trained, they stopped training, let's say back in 2024. They don't know every possible vulnerability, every possible open source package that is problematic, right? So as long as you complement the agents with an up-to-date signal, and the technologies are there today, right? There is MCP, there is all kinds of situations to give to the agent an up-to-date signal, then the agent can work with the up-to-date signal and replace the manual work that the developer is going to use, right? And I think the agents, when they are replacing manual work, right? What I described earlier, it says this is bad, let me try the next one. Okay, I tried to install the next one, it didn't work. Okay, let me try the next one. This is repetitive groundwork that AI should be able to do, and humans should focus on what is their application logic and what do they want to achieve out of the system, right? So that's why I'm very hopeful that it will help.
And with agents doing this kind of work, do you think that will also drive more standardization? Because one of the issues is you give 3 engineers a problem and they'll give you 8 ways to solve it. And so I think if we can get agents solving problems in a repetitive way that's kind of standardized, I'm wondering if that will help with some of that problem. There's no right way to do anything.
I think for this repetitive task, upgrade my dependencies, right? Whatever. Right? These are repetitive tasks that I think agents can do. I don't want to leave, human creativity out of the way, because the reason 2 developers or 5 humans ask to solve the same problem, come up with 5 different solutions, is because who knows they are coming from and how their creativity is working, right? So I find this more interesting rather than having the AI, standardize the way everything is done, because in the end of the day, where did it learn how to do it, right? It learned from humans, right? In the end of the day.
So it's interesting. Me and my sister actually did an experiment a couple days ago, and we were asking ChatGPT, who are the top experts in this field, and we would both put the same prompts into ChatGPT, and we asked, I think, for the top 5, and not only did we get different answers, but we got 0 overlap between the 2 different answers.
Wow!
And so we asked ChatGPT, like why are you giving us completely different answers? And it basically said, well, there's lots of experts, and we don't want to always be calling out the same experts. So, it basically said its programming tells it to randomize some of this. So, to your question, Jackie, it seems like it's being designed to act exactly like those engineers who are all going to solve it a different way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this
so
goes
consistency.
Back to the whole, like,
I don't think we're going to get consistency. In other words,
well, yeah, and I mean, and that's fair. And I think like humans want to believe that objective truth exists in a significantly larger part of reality than it does. Right? There's a reason that you can have like 100 eyewitnesses, and every single one of them has a different story. Is that reality is subjective. It just is. And and so that I agree. I mean, I think we could definitely do with standardizing some things. The human creativity part of it is what drives innovation and thinking outside the box and doing things inefficiently. So we also don't necessarily always want AI to do things the most efficiently it can, because sometimes it's those inefficient kind of tangents you take doing things that lead to innovation. But yeah, this whole thing is kind of like, it's all a simulation anyway, right? But I think it's interesting to think about like should we allow AI to make us all do things the right way when nobody really says there's a right way to do things?
Right. So Dimitri, before we wrap here, I wanted to give you an opportunity. Like, what are the main lessons we should take away from TJ Actions? What are the lessons learned that people should take away from that?
The one thing, right, is trust but verify any dependency you use, whether it's on the CI pipeline or whether in your software or whatever. And the other thing is, increasingly, my recommendation to everyone is treat your development pipelines as production. Don't treat them as something that devs that just do. They are production. They are the most critical production system you have.
Yep. We saw that in a recent incident, the McDonald's and Paradox AI thing we were talking about. Yeah, where they had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 login into their test account, and then lo and behold, test and production were linked. we're in the same database, so they were able to pivot over. Great stuff, Dimitri. Thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you. Good to talk with all of you.
And in the show notes, we do have a link. They've got so Endor has a great blog post on this where they they go through TJ Actions, and there's some great details in there. So be sure to check that out. And stay tuned. When we come back, we are going to have our topic discussion on whether the U.S. should ramp up offensive operations. This episode is sponsored by Fastly, the application security leader and edge cloud platform behind many top digital experiences. Fastly helps organizations deliver and secure online experiences for their end users through a modern, developer-friendly approach to security. With their next-gen WAF, bot management, and DDoS protections, teams have the tools they need to ensure their applications and APIs perform at their best without sacrificing speed or reliability. Discover how Fastly transforms security into an enabler for digital innovation at securityweekly.com/Fastly. You can't protect what you can't see. Everyone knows that, right? That's why RunZero gives you total visibility across your internal and external attack surfaces. Worried about unknown and unmanageable devices? They've got those covered too. RunZero also helps you illuminate all types of exposures, even the elusive ones. They go beyond CVEs to tackle the hard stuff, even 0 days. No agents, no authentication, just crazy deep data about your assets and exposures that focuses on the risks that actually matter. Not an endless sea of CVEs. Go try it for free and start seeing results in minutes. Visit securityweekly.com/RunZero to get started. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. It is time for our topic segment of the week, and this topic was triggered by an op-ed that Dave Kennedy posted on Cyberscoop titled, "Why It's Time for the U.S. to Go on Offense in Cyberspace." So definitely not the first time that this topic has come up. It's been discussed a lot over the years, but I think it's a good discussion to have because things are different now than I think the last time I saw this kind of go through the news cycle. Certainly we've been hacked by China a whole lot more times than the last time I've seen this go through the news cycle. And I remember 10, 15 years ago telling companies, look, you're not the target of an APT. This is not something you need to be worried about. And like that advice has totally changed. We now see teenagers with APT level access access to APT level tools. That stuff, that tooling tends to get out in space and become more accessible to other actors. And yeah, I think the landscape has kind of changed where really if you got money in the bank or if you have crypto, especially, you're a target, right? And it's, certainly we've seen lawyers have a lot of impact going after different hacking groups. I would, that might be the crux of my argument if I was going to make an argument against going on offense is that through legal means, we've been able to take down entire infrastructure, that are used by multiple actors, right? But want to get some of your thoughts on this as well. And he does admit, like there's a lot of problems here. There's a lot of nuance here. Like it's not straightforward. Let's just tell the NSA or whoever. I'm not even sure who would play this role, be the offensive. In the past it's been NSA, but there's other units that we have within the military that have offensive capabilities as well. But I'm certainly not an expert on it. But yeah, Jackie, what do you think?
So I'm not an expert either, full disclosure. My first data science job was at a SIM startup called Adlumin. They were recently sold, I think, to Enforce or a different company. But one of the co-founders at Adlumin was the former, let me make sure I get it right. He was the director of network cyber warfare for the Marines. And so there's a whole bunch of things when we started talking about this article to talk about it. One is, I think we do a lot more offensive cybersecurity than this makes it look like we do, right? So I originally brought up our collaboration with Mossad to take out, use hacking to take out a decent chunk of Iran's nuclear capabilities, cause significant damage there. We've done similar things in North Korea. We are actively, at cyber war with the PRC. And so I do think, one, I know every branch of the military has its own cyber warfare. Most of our intelligence agencies have their own cyber war. So I think we're not in the business of putting a PR out and saying, hey, we're about to use cyber warfare against North Korea. And North Korea is also not in the business of saying, hey, the US just hacked us and caused a massive, shutdown of part of our electrical grid. That's not something that happens. And so there are a lot of things going on in cyber warfare that you don't hear about. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're not happening. So that's kind of my first step is I was like, I understand that the author of this article is very well connected and probably knows quite a few people. And so do I. We probably run in a handful of the same circles. And so I would think that the awareness of the fact that we're always doing things would be there. And then
stuff below the waterline, the part of the iceberg.
Yeah, exactly. It's more than just what you see in Wired magazine. And then number two is art of war. Know your enemy. We know for a fact that between North Korea, China, Iran, we have a number of different nation state actors that have significantly compromised our critical infrastructure and have shown a willingness to dwell for years before taking action. We know for a fact that this is the case with our railways. We know for a fact this is the case with water treatment plants, with electric plants. So if you start poking a bear, and I assume by saying we want to be more proactive, he means we want to go out there and talk about these offensive operations more publicly. If you start doing that, and one of those nation state actors takes offense to that and decides why don't we just shut down electricity in LA for a couple hours and see what happens? Or disable all of the smart traffic cameras. That is another critical flaw that we recently found is the ability to control smart traffic cameras and traffic lights. So I think there's always a double-edged sword to poking an adversary, especially one that has compromised some of your infrastructure that you know of and probably a decent chunk that you don't know of. So that's my initial reaction, is that we are probably doing more than you think we are doing. And There's probably a reason we're not doing more. We tend to have a lot of very smart people assessing that, despite what goes on in the news. I promise you the people behind the scenes are more sensible and smart and level-headed, I hope. But yeah, so that's my initial reaction.
Thoughts, Katie?
I agree. I mean, I think the escalation risk in and of itself is quite large. We don't want to be in a position where, as Jackie said, we're poking the bear, and then I did a funny thing in my head with Cozy Bear and whatever. But we don't want to be in a position where we think we're being so smart, and then it's interpreted as an act of war, right? And unless a country is coming.
And one of the points he makes here is it's not clear where that line even is.
It's not clear. It's definitely not clear. If you go to any cyber lawyer and say, what is a cyber act? What is an act of war in cyberspace? Oh, it depends. The traditional answer always comes up. And to Jackie's other point, if you're talking about nation states not taking out press releases, PRs, differentiating between pull requests, but taking out press releases going, hey, we're North Korea over here. Hey, they're not doing it. So attribution, it can be tricky, right? So the last thing we want to do is, let's say, theoretically, I'm going to use other countries just to stay neutral. Let's say we think it's Switzerland and we go after Switzerland, but it's really Belgium, and then Belgium gets pissed off, and Switzerland is now pissed off because Belgium wants the attribution, but it's not them, and now Switzerland's like, well, we're being freaking blamed. Now we've got two places really, really mad, right? So attribution is hard. It's often unreliable. Nobody's taking out a banner. If they did, that would be great.
We're also throwing Taiwan to the wolves. Just for the record.
For the record, right?
And that the impact on technology globally of doing that, I think would trump, I hate you, no, would be worse.
I was just going to say thank you so much for the softball.
Would be significantly more disgusting.
Trust.
Yeah, I mean, think about that though. Like if I'm China and the US starts really, coming after me offensively from a cybersecurity perspective, they need semiconductors and chips to be able to continue to do that. And by the way, there are 6 of them or 7 of them for every one of us. You add Russia, Iran, I think we lose sight of the fact that we are, from a head count perspective, not one of the bigger, we make up a small percentage of the world
Are you
population.
including AI agents in that head count though?
It depends on how you manage them. See, with my privileged access management, they're treated as machines. But unfortunately, with my identity and access management platform, I treat them as humans. And we don't even collect those logs the last week of the month because we can't afford it in our SIM. So it doesn't matter. No, nice. But yeah, I mean, but seriously though, just from a sheer, literally, they could send over 1/6 of their population and just completely, this is not a place we want to go. It just isn't. And one of the other things I mentioned was, if you compare this to nuclear weapons, for example. So we've gotten to this place as a globe that it's mutually assured destruction, and that even the weakest nuclear weapons we have are likely so powerful that they would cause significant human radiation fall, all these things, right? And so we've gotten to the place where it's it's a standoff. That's not really how software works. And so you can instantly replicate software. So if you create the software equivalent of a nuclear bomb for cloud providers, you can instantly replicate that. And other people having it doesn't really prevent you from using it again. So there is no mutually assured destruction in this case that will prevent cataclysmic warfare. And that's why you just don't want to start there.
And part of that is because a lot of these adversaries, that can do these things, sure, a state-sponsored actor in China can do it, but also we're seeing, teenagers having even more of an impact. I would argue that a state-sponsored attack is going to be more measured and careful and aligned with political that's going to be more reserved, I think, because they're going to understand the potential impact better than a bunch of teenagers in the UK, like we just saw arrested there. So how do you use cyber deterrence from the U.S. military against a bunch of random teenagers, right?
They don't know. They don't understand the proportionality. They don't understand what is or may not be going on behind the scenes, right? They don't get it. And if you start to destabilize the norms of cyberspace, and whether it is your 16-year-old with crazy good skills or a nation state, if you start launching cyber offensive without clear rules of engagement, because we don't necessarily have the clear rules of engagement for cyber warfare anyway, but at least I think most people, a few countries top people aside, understand that having some sort of responsible behavior, because you could die too. If you destabilize that, if you go over that line, you can't come back, right? And you're dealing with a more dangerous, less predictable environment. And we're not just talking about stealing my social security number. I mean, I'm almost to a point where I would say it on air, right? I don't care. Everybody can find my social security number if they want to. But I do care if the grid goes offline for a long time. I do care if my water supply is impacted. I do care if nobody can get gas or electricity for their cars, or if we can't buy food. Look what happened during COVID. And that wasn't even anything to do with cyber. People were scared out of their minds because they couldn't get food. Certain foods were not available. Toilet paper, for some bizarre reason, was being hoarded. Now imagine somebody who really hates you comes after you and everything is digital.
Oh, and by the way, your entire economy is dependent on goods from that country as well. So they also simultaneously stop all imports of goods, because while that will cripple their economy, they are a much larger economy and they can take that impact for a couple months, because it's going to screw you a hell of a lot more than it screws them. And that's one of the best things I've heard said about diplomacy in the last chaotic year is that the US has started to get so obsessed with who's riding on the bus for free that we've forgotten that the fact that we're driving the bus is the most important part. And I think that can probably be applied to technology as well.
I was going to make a joke about, wait, I thought we were talking about cybersecurity, Jackie.
No, but if you start shooting people on the bus because you decide that they don't deserve to ride that bus, people aren't going to want to ride your bus anymore. And if there is a company who's already supplying the vast majority of electronic components to the world, they might have a better bus. And that while we demonize China and we try to act like they're not an option, in a globe where the West stops being a trusted technology partner, they are the only other option.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, so to wrap up the conversation here, I think in certain cases, he might have a point here, and there might be things we want to do, like particularly with China, being, one of the biggest here. But also, I think we have to look at this in terms of, who's most likely to cause damage versus, a lot of China's hacks like OPM and Marriott and a lot of that was to gather intel. There were no real direct damage or losses, and except for maybe sending out identity protection, stuff like that. But China doesn't sell your information on the black market. That's not how their hacking works. And then more of the damaging stuff we're seeing is not coming from a state, it's not coming from Turkey or China or Russia. And so it's Russia, some of the organizations that benefit from, not being extradited from some of those countries, maybe, but if it's something that anybody can do, I don't see the military being able to be a deterrent here. Again, it just goes back to going to jail, right? Like getting arrested. And, again, the legal system becomes the bigger deterrent here for a lot of these, I think.
Yeah, well, and with no like international criminal court for cybersecurity, that becomes pretty difficult. And, one of the reasons we saw ransomware spike so badly during the pandemic is everybody's home, everybody's broke, and everybody's got lots of time on their hands. And to your point, it wasn't nation state ransomware actors. It was these ransomware as a service, ransomware, as a tool. And and I think if we see an economic pullback, which may happen, that it's only going to increase the number of kind of rogue non-nation state actors trying to hack for profit.
Yeah. And to be clear, what I'm saying here is there's not just one lane, right? There's not just one solution. There's a lot of different problems. There's a lot of different actors. And, I think the solutions here are going to be as varied as the attacks in the actors here. So like, I think I guess one of my problems with the article is it does kind of loosely use a lot of different examples where some did a lot of damage, like Colonial Pipeline, and some did a lot less damage. And there's a variety of actors in here. There's teenagers, there's state-sponsored hacking, and it's kind of all over the place. I think we need to be a little bit more specific about, okay, when we say we need the military to go on the offense in the cyber domain, here's a good example of where that could have helped with statecraft. So I would love to, hopefully this results in other blog posts, other op-eds, other conversation. I would like to see this kind of play out and get a little bit more specific.
Agreed.
All right, that's all the time we have today for this topic segment. Stick around and we'll be right back in a few moments with the weekly enterprise news. Legacy tools flood you with alerts. Node Zero shows you what's actually exploitable. Horizon 3 AI's offensive security platform autonomously identifies attack paths, validates findings with real proof, and helps teams prioritize remediation based on true impact. No agents, no guesswork, no disruption. Just production-safe testing that mirrors how adversaries move in the real world. Stay ahead of credential abuse, privilege escalation, and lateral movement. Learn how Node Zero changes the game at securityweekly.com/Horizon3. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW417. That is the episode number for today. If you want to follow along with the news, you want to check out any of the links or any of my stupid comments for any of these stories. I don't have a ton of comments in here. It was a struggle to, I've got too much stuff up in the air. Didn't get to add comments for all the stories, but we've got some fun ones in here today I'm looking forward to. Also, we have Mr. Ayman Elsawa joining us. How you doing, Ayman?
Good. How are you?
Very good. It's been a fun, our interview was a fun conversation. Topic was a fun one, talking about whether or not the U.S. military should be doing more hacking and more openly. So it was a fun conversation. We'll see if anybody comes back to challenge us on any of our opinions there.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Sometimes it leads to new guests coming on the show, so we were kind of open with our thoughts and feelings on that.
Nice.
Starting off as we usually do with funding, interesting that I've got to fix a problem with my code in the show notes there. I see there's some punctuation there that should not be there. But Vanta raised a $150 million Series D. So, and it's interesting because their Series C was the same amount, but valued them at $2.45 billion. But this amount values them at $4.15 billion. It's a big space. Vanta and Drata, I rarely hear the two in a sentence without the other, right? I almost never hear Drata mentioned without Vanta and vice versa. So there's some clear competition in this market. A lot of automate your SOC 2, automate your compliance stuff. They're all using AI at this point. So they're getting all the monies, a lot of customers. I have heard people say that they like one or the other and that it really is helping them automate some things. Ayman, I don't know if you have any experience with any of these, but does seem a mark. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, every day. I'm in these tools every day, and I think the big. First of all, I don't know about the valuation. That's it. I'm curious, because it's not rocket science, but I'm not going to give my opinion on a specific vendor for necessarily. I think what it comes down to is using these tools is like the experience. Like you're going to spend a lot of time in these tools, so the UI UX should be really good, and then the integrations far say. But yeah, I think it's fascinating news. So I'm definitely watching this space.
Okay, yeah. And
I'm
at the
sure
same time,
Sequoia
they
was happy to see their investment value double, right?
Sure. So I should have also mentioned that one of the acquisitions that we've got in the show notes today was acquired by Vanta, I think a couple days before they announced the Series D. So they're using that money. Yeah, and it was I forget what it was, a third-party vendor risk management platform called Risky. And it's I love what they did with the name. So Risky, but it's spelled where key is KEY.
What's interesting is it's just inevitable for these platforms to keep expanding and become like supposedly like the source of truth for like CISOs to use, I guess, because I think they have been going up market a lot lately. So maybe that's the idea with this acquisition. So I'm really curious what's next for them.
Yeah, I think we're going through a pretty classic kind of consolidation phase in that, as GRC became more crazy and like all areas of security kind of fragmented out and we had all these kind of, patchwork solutions, but now teams are like, I'm not going into 12 different platforms to handle the security issues, respond to them, and then document them. And yeah, I think it's just a natural
same thing for the GRC team, right?
Yeah. And they're like, we just want a place to do things. I still don't buy that there's going to be one platform to rule them all. But yeah, I think this has been something that we've been seeing for 2 years now. And that as people can't get out to IPO, we're seeing a lot of this like debt or venture funded acquisitions and consolidations and things like that.
Yeah, it's going to happen regardless whether, it's IPO money or VC money. Like, that money's going to come in and make it happen. There's a new AppSec platform called Crash Override, which I haven't seen the movie. Don't give me crap over it, but I assume it's a hackers reference. But they raised a $28 million seed round from Google Ventures and Sin Ventures.
Well, now I feel like we're going to have a hackers viewing party at DEF CON for you, Adrian, because...
I know. I've tried to watch it a couple times, but I'm like, it's so cringe.
Yeah, it is. But like a rite of passage, just like the Labyrinth. Or Labyrinth. I'm sorry, it's not the Labyrinth. Labyrinth.
I'll get there eventually.
Labyrinth to be insanely cringe, but you have to watch it.
Yeah, Labyrinth is
before the 80s.
Yeah. Zip Security, a security and compliance automation platform for small businesses. So you really know a market is going crazy when you see the SMB version of Vanta and Drata, right? Like somebody's looking at that thinking, okay, I don't want to come into that market late. They've got $500 million of funding, but maybe I can do it for SMBs, right?
But that's so that smart.
They raise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's not worth it for the bigger companies to do the tiny deals. So you let a little startup build a platform around that, and then you just gobble them up.
So I'm friends with Josh, the founder of Zip Security, actually, and it's actually an MDM solution, like a help simplify your security operations. Like they do MDM with like click of a button, and then they add on top like MDR as well. So like they'll manage your Jamf and Intune because it sucks to deal with Jamf and Intune, basically.
Right.
Yeah. So they make it easy from that perspective.
That's not at all what I was expecting from the description.
Yeah, sorry. I just, but yeah, I actually
I'm glad you clarified that because I did not realize that.
Yeah, and Ballistic is Kevin Mandia's VC firm.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
Right.
I got the chance to meet him at a talk over here. So it's kind of cool.
All right. And the last one we have here is empirical security, which are so Jay Jacobs, Reutman, and Ed Bellis just joined them. So basically, some of the key folks from Kenna Security, which got acquired by Cisco. And so that was a risk-based vulnerability management tool that would pull in all your vulnerability scans. So same folks, while they were at Kenna, they came up with a model that would try and predict the likelihood of exploitation of a vulnerability called EPSS. So these are the EPSS folks. They have founded a company behind EPSS, and they basically have an application that they've built there. And they're still supporting EPSS. I think EPSS is the official home is still first.org. But yeah, now they've built a for-profit startup around it. And they just raised, what did they raise? $12 million seed from Costanoa Ventures.
That's a name.
Yeah, so they actually have a decent Costanoa, a decent portfolio of tech companies. It tends to be really, really early stage. On the security side, they've got like App Omni, Cyril, Kenna, like Run Reveal, like Truly, like a bunch of the really kind of earlier stage security companies, but probably a good thing, because generally the early stage VCs who are technical experts and stick to a vertical they know do better. But yeah, I was actually looking through Costanoa's portfolio, which is, I'm not an expert in them. I just happened to spend some time crawling through it. So yeah, it's an interesting investment.
Yeah.
And that's a strong team. And if you're betting on a team of people who have experience and knowledge and have put in a lot of years working really hard, this is definitely a top tier team. So don't know anything about product or their strategy or their vision, but I know all of these people. And
yeah, so they're trying to pair like real-time attack intelligence to vulnerabilities to tell you whether or not stuff is likely to get attacked or is being actively attacked. So we see the CISA Kev and VulnCheck and a lot of other organizations there trying to link vulnerabilities to exploit code and then to active exploitation and things like that. And they're trying to do it a little bit more efficiently. And I think it's a tough problem. I have a lot of questions here and deeply engaged in all things vulnerability management. But I'm doing some research here, so I'm not quite prepared to share my full opinions on this yet. But I'll be hopefully releasing some stuff and have more to say on this topic in the future. All right. Let's go ahead and jump to something fun. Well, I say fun. I mean, it's a breach. It's a bad thing. We don't want to see people get breached. But Eamon, you shared the Clorox one. Why don't you talk about this?
Yeah, I mean, talk about sophisticated attack. They, the attackers basically, I think it was managed by a third party. Yeah, a third party service. And so they just called the support desk and asked for the passwords, and they gave them the passwords. So, yeah. I don't know what's worse, giving them the passwords or password 123, right? So,
same thing happened with Marks and Spencer, right? They basically just called up, said they were an employee, and they just reset their stuff. No questions asked, didn't verify identities. And again, that was a third party in that case. Yeah. That was a third party running their service desk.
Yeah, I wish I usually try to read the indictment before I didn't get to read it before today, but I'm gonna read it. And it's right here, just on page 11. How can I help you today? My password on Okta is not working. Okay. And there you go.
Okay.
And so that was it. Them to Clorox at 123.
Wow.
So that's it. They just asked for the Okta password and said it wasn't working and reset it.
There it was.
And there it was.
I wish we could say that we have more stories where it was harder, but I feel like we've got more than one story where you're like, it can't possibly have been this easy, right?
Well, it goes back, whatever that was, 15 years, chocolate for passwords, right? Like, this has been going on forever.
Giving away candy bars for passwords.
Yeah.
I would totally give away my passwords.
I try to tell people, like,
chocolate.
it's not as hard as you think. Yeah.
I don't know any of my passwords, so it's okay.
So again, every single pen test you've ever had, if social engineering is part of it, the pen tester did this. They probably succeeded in doing this, and then you did what? Like, where is the remediation? Like, I can't imagine that Marks and Spencer, that Clorox, that all these different companies that got hit by scattered spider had never been through a pen test engagement with social engineering where they did pretexting, where they call up and, that's where you pretend you're somebody you're not, to get a password out of somebody or get access to something. I can't believe that none of them ever had that pen test. But I can believe that they had the pen test and maybe didn't read the report or read the report and did nothing about it, because I experienced that firsthand throughout my entire pen testing career.
One of the other things I think is interesting that I've never seen companies do is, so for example, I used to be a customer service rep at Fidelity, right? So I had access to trillions of dollars worth of accounts, and I never had the security that I know of. The security team never reached out to a customer service rep and was like, hey, if you were going to call in and try to scam a customer service rep, what would you do? Because I would know better than almost anybody else at Fidelity what their policies are, what information they'll disclose, when they'll make exceptions on the number of verifiers you need before they'll give you account information. And that stuff can all be sold, can all be weaponized, can all be, and that's, I really think that we could go about doing the social engineering pieces in much more intelligent ways, because if you think about who would actually know the most effective ways to do it, it's the people that are getting social engineered. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think that this is, I love social engineering. It's like one of my favorite things in the world. So
it's great, but nobody does it as part of their pen test. People.
Oh, they don't?
No, they don't. Well, they don't approve it. Like a lot of folks are like, no, we don't want to do it. No, hold on. We don't want to. A larger organization,
so
good security leaders will get it done. But even good ones don't, depending on their org structure, won't get it approved, right?
So there are concerns, like it is kind of violating to employees, to do that to that employee. Like nobody's signing up, to be intentionally tricked and scammed. And actually, the pen testing firm I worked for, we really only had one or two people that were willing to do this. Like some of our pen testers were ethically opposed to tricking somebody, even if it was like a service and the company said it was okay and you could do it. They still felt like
get in trouble for the most part, right? And that's the thing. That's why, even at restaurants, I'm always like, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I don't want to cause anybody to lose their job. And and that's where security culture matters so much, because if that person who screws
up, but there is a cockroach in my food.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I get it. And for as much of a jerk as I usually come across as, I'm always the person that's like, man, if I was 18 and waiting table, so I always am hyper empathetic and I like social engineering in other ways, but I probably would also have a little bit of a qualm with unless you can guarantee me you're not going to fire the person who I get information out of.
So, Eamon, I feel like we should act this out. I'll be the cognizant agent. You be the cyber criminal.
Okay.
Do you have it pulled up?
Oh, yeah. Let me pull it up. Where was it?
Let me know when you're ready.
Ring. Or I guess you ring.
How can I help you today?
My password on Okta is not working.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have your password reset from my end right away. Okay. And we'll see how it's going to work. Okay. Thanks. Sorry for the wait. So your password is going to be Clorox @123.
Wait, what's that?
Yeah, your password's going to be Clorox @123.
Yep.
Want me to wait over the phone while you're trying it?
Yes, please.
And that's it. That's how the hack happened.
No, it's hilarious.
That's the whole thing.
If you're not
That'll make a
watching
fun
this
short.
episode, I highly recommend tuning in just to see Eamon's face. He knew exactly what was going to happen, and he was still incredulous.
Yeah.
And that's how it feels as a pen tester too. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe that actually worked.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. Okay.
It changes the way you see the world. I mean, same thing with lock picking, right? Like the first time you see someone slap a padlock and it opens because they slapped it, like forget picks. Like once you have this knowledge in your head, you can't undo it. You know, you look at something, you're like, okay, yeah, I could break into that really easy. That company, I could break in really easy. Like everything is just super easy.
When you find out all you need on a door is just a screwdriver and a hammer, and you can just take the pins out of the hinges and the lock doesn't matter.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because they put the hinges on the wrong side, right?
Yeah. So last year at DEF CON, the Las Vegas Convention Center, there was like the National Institutes of Health, or like it was a super like high level federal health conference going on the other side of the conference center as DEF CON. Do you remember this? And I had to speak at the Dark Arts Village at DEF CON, and I had 2 huge suitcases with me because I had
There's a Dark Arts Village?
Yeah. And so I had 2 big suitcases with me because I had come directly from the airport. And so I go to the wrong side of the convention center. I have no badge. I have nothing. Yeah. And they're like, and it's just the regular convention center security people. And I'm like, no, I don't have a badge, but I have to speak in like 20 minutes. I need to get in. I will go get my badge right away. They let me in. I make it through like 3 different checkpoints before I realize I'm in a federal National Institutes of Health conference with 2 full suitcases nobody has looked in. And I'm on the wrong side of the convention center. Yeah. And literally just because I was so like exasperated and like, no, like, you're going to make me miss my talk. Everybody kept being like, oh, I don't want to deal with this lady.
Yeah. You create you're going to get in trouble if you don't let me in situation. And that person's probably not getting paid enough to tell you no.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. That's it. Just as simple as that. So for another fun one, did you guys get a chance to check out this Twitter thread? The story, I've been moving stuff around. I don't know what number it is for you, but it's the Vibe Coding Campfire story from Jason Lemkin, CEO of Saster.ai. This has been making the rounds.
I read
he's using a tool called Replit. And he's basically trying to build an application using Replit, and it's too long to go through the entire thread, but basically like he's trying to use it like you would use a programmer on your team. So it's doing more than generating code. It's interacting with the database. He's giving credentials to it to manage infrastructure. And it's lying to him. It deleted the database at one point. It's overwriting code.
Is this the one where it told him he couldn't get the database back?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, there have been bits and pieces of this shared just all over the internet, all over Reddit in the last couple of days.
I got to read this. This is near and dear because I've been losing a lot of sleep vibe coding the past week. Like, it's bad. Like, not eating. I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but like it's, and I spent a day troubleshooting an issue because Claude Code decided to create its own OAuth library and not use off-the-shelf NextAuth JS. And I'm like, you did what? And it's like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I'm like, yes, you shouldn't have done that. And then it started using 2 versions of a library, and I'm like, "What version are you using?" And then it started downloading a beta version. I'm like, "Whoa, hold on a second." So I believe this. I totally believe this.
But is that really meaningfully different than working with incompetent humans? Because during one of my largest and most critical needs in one of my own businesses, my website guy realized that he needed a SQL database for something instead of like a JSON dictionary. And so he just dumped the JSON into SQL, left the blank values and pushed it. And so my website started DDoSing itself because every time it hit one of those blank SQL values, it started going, what is this? What is this? What is this? What is this? So I mean, I don't know. I've worked with some pretty incompetent humans who
I think
the velocity is
I think the difference is, not the difference. I think the differentiating factor here is that this puts it into the hands of more people who really don't know what they're doing. And so the opportunity for greater, maybe not greater damage in the sense of larger, deeper, but more of it happening, just more velocity is greater.
Yeah, I agree. But I think there's another differentiating factor we have to call out here. And if you read through the thread, you noticed a pattern. It seems to be able to recognize that it did the wrong thing, but it seems unable to correct its own behavior.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem here is that it can't correct its own behavior because that's just functionally not how it works.
Yeah, so I posted a rant on generative AI on LinkedIn yesterday or the day before about this because it's not actually acknowledging it did something wrong. It's acknowledging your negative reinforcement learning.
Right.
But that doesn't remove the dot from the training matrix. And this is what people don't really understand, is that when AI hallucinates or does something wrong, it's picking wrong data points that exist in the multidimensional matrix. You can tell it that it's wrong and it will find a different route through that matrix, but unless it retains that piece of data in its memory every single time you go through that matrix, it will be wrong again. You cannot untrain a model. It doesn't work that way. No matter how many times you tell it it's wrong, you are not removing the wrong data from that model. You are telling it to take a different route, but you are not taking the routes that are wrong out. And unless the only way to do that is to retrain that model, and the amount of data filtering and management that has to be done to do that costs tens of millions of dollars. And so we need to start teaching people at like a third grade level how generative AI works, because people really think, and this was a conversation with a lawyer yesterday, that just telling AI it's wrong completely removes that information from that model and it will never come up again.
Yeah. And hilariously, he asks it to write an apology letter at one point, that's going to do anything.
Yeah.
And it lies in the apology letter. And then he points out that it lied in the apology letter and asked it how it would fix that. Dude, you're just wasting cycles in credits at this point.
And lying is attributing.
It's not going to learn from its lesson.
Yeah. And lying is attributing moral intention to bad data. And this is, again, it's the thing. It's like, it didn't lie. It came up with an answer that the discriminator, which is the one of two models that work in a generative model, the discriminator was like, yeah, that sounds like believable. That's how it works. Like, so with a Gen AI, it's like the generator model and the discriminator model trained on the same data. The generator says, based on the data I was trained on, I'm generating this thing. And the discriminator says, based on the data I was trained on, the thing you just generated, yep, that pretty much matches what the input asked for. And there's a threshold. And once it crosses that threshold, so that's why things sound very believable when they're wrong, is because it's literally just going through a model and the discriminator saying, yeah, that's 98% right. Fuck it. Let's do it.
Go ahead.
I think we need to shift expectations here. Sorry, I'll let you go, Eamon. I think the expectation coming in with one of these coding agents is that, like an employee, you're going to show it right and wrong, where the lines are, what to do, what not to do. But in reality, it's you that needs to be trained on how you're going to use this tool. And we've got to shift that expectation here, because people are just wasting just thousands of GPU cycles or millions of GPU cycles and credits here.
Yeah. I along those lines is basically like, our expectations, but also just like you have engineers that can make mistakes, you have AI agents that can make mistakes. So what I learned in the past week, and he kind of alluded to it, and Daniel Miesler also had a post that was specifically on this too, is we can't forget fundamental software engineering practices, like don't work on prod, like, review your commits, like, basic stuff, right? So just like any engineer can make a mistake. I mean, people delete S3 buckets. Okay, well, how do you prevent that? Well, let's see. Let's put MFA delete on there. Let's put versioning. Let's, do all these other things to prevent it, because AI agents are going to make the same mistakes that humans make. And that's exactly what I saw this week. I mean, I know engineers that would or I knew of engineers that would create, crypto libraries from scratch. I'm like, why are you doing that? Just use a known library. So same thing, right? I have updated the memory of Cloud Code to say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. So, and I'm seeing now a lot of things coming up my feed, like give it a PRD, right? So how many, even companies, a lot of companies will just code stuff without a PRD. No, come up with a PRD of what you're trying to build, and and give the specs out to the engineers so they can build it. So we're just forgetting.
But again, I think the difference is AI doesn't learn. So you can tell Claude that it was wrong and not to do this and not to do that, but until they actually update the training data for Claude, the only place that those corrections exist is in the memory on your endpoint. And so that, or, stored in the cloud, whatever. But that's the thing, is like, when I'm working with human engineers, I can be like, hey, don't do that. Do this instead. And then when they come to a similar problem, they can apply abstract reasoning to say, okay, if I wasn't supposed to do this in this situation, then I shouldn't do this in this situation. And that's another thing that AI really struggles with, is that generally with AI, we err on the side of over specificity than generalization, because generalization gets really out of hand with AI really fast. And humans' ability to generalize in very selective ways is what makes kind of the systemic thinking of developers and engineers different than normal people, right? And so, like, it's just, again, we have to be real. We have to stop anthropomorphizing this thing as if it's a living, breathing brain that can learn it. And then we have to stop calling it learning, like, because it's not actually what it's doing. And until we can get away from that and trust normal people with understanding how these things work and stop treating them as this like ephemeral magic for the technocrats, like, we're going to have these issues. Like, we have to start teaching people the realities of how these things work.
Yeah, it's true. I spent this last week on a little project, and I was complaining to Eamon about it because he was talking about how much he loves it. And I was having significant problems with I was using 4 or 5 different models. I was having problems with every single one of them. And it was good for me because I'm learning and I got to ingest all of this information that I can now use. But I got to a point where I was so frustrated. And I'm like, if I were talking to a person, they would have understood exactly what I needed 5 or 6 prompts ago. I would change up my prompts. And when I would get frustrated with the model, I would look at the prompts or the response it gave me and try to mirror the language, thinking, okay, if I use the words that it's suggesting, which it knows, maybe that will be better. And it didn't help. It didn't help at all.
Yeah.
And I got to a point.
I've noticed sometimes you have to ditch a chat and just start a new chat. I've noticed sometimes it deteriorates over
100%.
time.
I made the freaking mistake of referencing the NIST framework once in a chat with ChatGPT. And I had put so much time into that chat. And after mentioning it once, it would not produce a single thing that didn't mention it, even when I told it to stop mentioning it.
Wow.
It was so frustrating.
Just latched onto it.
I was just like, well, this is my framework for existence now.
Yeah, I get that all the time. And it's
also like people though, Jackie. I know some people like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
NIST CSF, NIST, shut up.
Another thing I learned in talking with a friend of mine he's retired now, and he's a creator, tinkerer, and what he does now, he changes his projects, his art projects. He's done metalworking, he's done leatherworking, he built a photo processing studio in an old VW bus or something similar. But now his thing is creating art with AI, generating art. And in talking to him about my frustrations, I basically figured out if you're using a free model, you get what you pay for. And probably a lot of people don't understand that yet. I mean, yes, in the tech community, very different, but a lot of regular old folks, they think, hey, if I just go on the free version of ChatGPT, I'm going to get what I need. Not the same. The little free thing that you get at the grocery store is not the same portion as when you buy it for $42. And there was a distinct difference between the models that I was paying for and the free versions, but I can tell you that the outputs weren't different. I just got more opportunities with the paid models. I got more
features,
guidance, I want to say, from the models themselves. The feedback that they gave me, almost like my own little training model, was better on the paid models that I was using than it was on free. It was just like, screw you. You can't do what you want. Go away.
Yeah. One of the weird things I found is that I had given one of the, I think, Gemini my bio. And in my bio, it says that I'm an advocate for women in cybersecurity and neurodiversity. And same thing, like even if no matter what, if I was talking about anything technical, it would throw something about neurodiversity in there just because it was in, and it was like one of 8 documents I gave it for writing style and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just, there's these weird things that you find that you can like self-pollute your data. And it still doesn't know how to properly classify small language models, which is essentially what you're creating with your like memory and things like that.
And then when you're connecting to external data, it's pulling stuff from websites that could have prompt injection baked into it, or it's allowed to read emails. That you just have more and more opportunities for that to happen. And good luck debugging it and figuring out where that weird stuff in your prompt output came from.
Well, now that Cloudflare is blocking AI crawlers by default for their customers, and you actually have to pay to crawl some of their customers' websites, it's getting worse because I think that's the problem, right? Is that now it's just companies who have some type of vested interest in being crawled that are open for these crawlers, which means that data is starting to get skewed. Because that's one of my biggest beefs right now with GPT is it can't access anything. It can't access any website I give it. It can't, even if I give it a website that's just a JSON dictionary, it's like, nope, can't access that. Sorry.
Weird.
Yeah. It's like, and I think it's because it's being blocked at the DNS level.
Oh, by Cloudflare.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So speaking of which, we've got a lot of AI in the news today, but there's a great post on how to hack AI agents and applications from Joseph Thacker. And if you look close at his name, you'll find that he hid the fact that he's a hacker with a T at the beginning of his last name there. Joseph Thacker. We're on to you, Joseph.
You're such a dad.
I couldn't help it. I apologize. No, I don't.
It's what we find endearing about you.
Yeah, he's got a good newsletter on on just AI in general.
It's a great name for somebody posting about hacking, though. It's kind of like the who's the president of Nintendo America? Bowser. His last name's Bowser.
Oh my god! Is it really?
It is. That is I did not make that up. I forget his first name, but his last name is Bowser. Helped him get the job.
This is a phenomenal guide. If anybody has not read it, it's pretty in depth and well laid out. And for people like me who like things bulleted and bolded and tabled,
like most things. Yeah, for something that's so long, it is very readable, very concise. A lot of data, but very concise and chunked up. and it's like most great things on the internet, he created it because he couldn't find like a good consolidated resource. And this was published a while ago. This was published back in February, but apparently I just stumbled upon it within the last week, and it made it into the news items. But yeah, if you want a good place to start, if you haven't done any hacking with AI models, prompt injection, adversarial prompting, all that good stuff, red teaming AI, this is a great start.
Yeah.
Let's see. So moving on, we've got a couple. I haven't had time to dig deep into stories 4 and 5. The 0 day that could have compromised every cursor windsurf user in Google.
Oh, it's crazy.
So we can talk about that one, but I just want to call out the Google says big sleep AI tool found bug hackers plan to use. This is basically Google saying, okay, we've crossed this point where like AI is good enough to be spotting zero days before they actually get used by attackers. So that's basically the whole point of that, is to say, hey, we've reached this milestone. But yeah, going back to, I don't know if anybody else had time to read the cursor windsurf one.
Yeah, it was basically a flaw within OpenVSX. So that's one of the things that one of the open source platforms that powers the back end of a lot of these. And once you compromised the flaw, it essentially gave you like supply chain access. So it wasn't just to a specific.
Okay.
So it allowed you to.
So that's why it impacts so many of these.
And it was and it gave you access to the back end of the marketplaces for windsurf and cursor and those types of things. Yeah. So it was basically, I think it's what they're like, all of the different developers who sell packages and things through them, what they use to manage that open source marketplace. So it was a big one. It's I only read the article you sent. I didn't dive too much deeper into it. But again, I think, just like we were talking about with Endor Labs, this is one of those things where we're building layer upon layer upon layer of abstracted code. And, those little critical flaws sit there for years, and then somebody finds them, and they're not a little deal anymore.
Yeah. Dependencies all the way down. And then, the really crazy one was the hacker planting computer wiping commands in Amazon's AI coding agent.
Oh my God. This was insane.
That's fascinating.
Submitted a merge request from a random GitHub account that didn't have any access or credentials, was granted access, and they merged the branch. The whole read is just one of those, like, how many layers of people did this have to clear?
Well, and like in our interview earlier, he was saying the TJ Actions thing was basically this. This is very similar to that.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of it's why it's one of those, I try not to be so sarcastic and skeptical all the time, but it's always cute to me when the very largest tech companies in the world are talking about how they're going to build AGI when they literally can't build tools to detect these kind of things. They're still doing resource planning in Excel. They're still using ticketing systems. Like, I love they're going to build this like AI to rule the world, but they're still just pissing hundreds of millions of dollars in engineer and developer productivity away in useless hour-long meetings every week. They could have been an email. And like, it just, I don't know, the whole thing is kind of silly to me, because it's like, this is Amazon. If anybody should have the tools to be able to detect that something is not correct about a random ass account merging something in, it should be Amazon, right? And like, at the end of the day, it's probably a people problem.
It's just one of those, if these guys are getting caught out by this, what hope do the rest of us have?
Yeah,
that's fair. I think even though I might be bullish on AI and whatever, I think there's still a long way to go, and the promises or the timelines that we think for general stuff is going to be a lot longer, but for specific stuff like coding agents and stuff like that, that's coming sooner than later. But
Yeah, I mean, more and more of these, hey, if I hack this one tool, I get access to 1,000 organizations, right? So it's, as these AI third-party SaaS hosted AI tools are spreading and popping up as quickly as people can vibe code them. They're getting explored and hacked just as quick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot more of these. I thought let's see, we don't have a ton left to talk about here, but so one quick one is the new service here. This is more for people in the EU, people on the European side. Yet another one of these. Not yet another. So it's not a vulnerability database. It's actually a service. It's a vulnerability notification service from Orange. So Orange is a telecom over there, has a lot of cybersecurity services and things like that. And it looks like it is a paid service with a free trial. It looks like, so it's not free, but more and more I see organizations moving to an intelligence-driven vulnerability management process rather than a scan-driven vulnerability management process. So the idea being you have a good list of all your products and software that you use, and instead of waiting for some scheduled scan to run to tell you 2 weeks after a vulnerability came out that it's in your environment and that it's vulnerable, you're going to you already know struts or log4j or whatever it might be, Node.js is in your environment, and you're going to get an email that there's a critical vulnerability in it, and then you're going to act on it. You're not going to wait for your scanner to tell you. And again, because we're seeing exploitation happen on average in 5 days. If it's something exposed to the public internet, it's 24 hours after disclosure. We see people attacking stuff. So waiting for your scanner to get updated to find the vulnerability and then waiting for your next scheduled scan, just not going to work if you want to fix this stuff or protect it before it gets compromised. And then the last one, I guess, here is this Avanti bugs. 6 months after these came out, organizations in Japan are still just having a really hard time replacing these appliances and patching them and upgrading them. And it's just like a classic hardware issue here where updating them would exceed the hardware, the capabilities of the hardware. So they actually need the money to replace the hardware itself. So I think in a lot of cases where people are like, why didn't they apply the patch? Like this is one of those cases where it's actually a lot more complicated than just applying a software patch.
I guess that bears the question, should hardware vendors be like, should there be some type of time period that hardware vendors are required to have software support? Like, is it indefinite? Is it, because it's one of like the planned obsolescence.
The customer should certainly know.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the planned obsolescence aspect of hardware kills me. And that is one of the ways that they'll force EOL on hardware that they're trying to sell the new versions of, right? Is they're like, oops, sorry, it doesn't support the latest software.
I've had some Ubiquity stuff go out of support like 18 months after I bought it.
Yeah.
And I just, wow. It would have been nice if I knew that it was planned for obsolescence in such a short time when I bought it. But yeah, as far as I can tell, Avanti made it clear that December 31st, 2024, they were going to discontinue support for this. But that's another asset management issue and lifecycle management issue. I keep, every time I have a call with somebody, I tell them, plan to ditch before you hitch.
Yeah. Generally, like with hardware,
is the phrase I throw out.
Yeah, with hardware, you're not like, how long is this going to be supported by the manufacturer? It's more like, how long do these things last? How long do we expect, this to meet our needs? That's generally not like the patching and firmware and all of that is not generally. So I don't know, maybe it's something people consider and I'm not part of those conversations, but generally with hardware, especially like in the industrial space and things like that, you're more looking at like, what's the expected life? and that type of thing, and not like, oh, and by the way, in 18 months, even though this thing is barely 10% of the way through its life, we're just going to have to replace it anyway.
It's one thing to personally be like, I'm going to use this iPhone until it falls apart. Mm-hmm. Right. And then only then am I getting a new one. But to do that with your whole business, like we're gonna just run this into the ground. Like I think we have to get away from that kind of thinking, and we have to. I think it's just irresponsible. I think we have to start planning to replace stuff, or at least looking at the planned obsolescence of something, or the end of support, and planning to replace it. I used to put that on my pen test reports. If I did a pen test of your organization and all 800 PCs in the call center were still running Windows XP when you were less than 8 months away from Windows 7 coming out, same situation. Yep. Like most systems running Windows XP did not have the RAM necessary, the minimum RAM to run Windows 7, which was a big jump in RAM requirements. And that went in my pen test report is, look, you have to replace all your PCs in the next 8 months, like physically, like operating system and hardware. And you have no plan to do that, which means you're going to be sitting with XP, unsupported.
Just put Home Edition on them.
Just put Linux on them and just port all your applications and retrain all your people, and it'll be fine.
It's that easy.
Yeah. All right. That's all we got time for today. Thank you so much, Eamon, Katie, Jackie, for joining me today. It's been a blast.
Thanks for having us.
And a big thanks to everyone for watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. And next week, we are going to be talking to David Haber, CEO and co-founder of Lakera, about AI security. So this is the company that makes Gandalf, if you've ever played around with the Gandalf tool that teaches you how to do prompt injection.
Ooh, I want to go to that one. Okay, cool. I'll be there.
Yeah, so that's your notice, Eamon. If you want to make that interview, that's going to be next week. 3 p.m. Eastern, we will be recording. And you guys will get to hear it August 4th, the following Monday. That's when we release these things. All right, see you all then. Have a great weekend.